advocate for the White House to come to his defense in front of Congress?
I don't know that firsthand. I just know that if Bob was offering this view, it must have been in contrast to something else, and I'm just supposing, probably shouldn't speculate that that point of view is Hunter's point of view or his attorney's point of view.
Did you ever have conversations with Hunter's attorneys?
I had some conversations with Abby Lowell, yes.
What was the nature of those conversations?
After I left the White House, Abby called to say they were trying to raise money for Hunter's legal defense and asked if I would make a donation.
Did you?
I did.
How much did you donate?
Donated $5,000.
Abby Lowell's former firm, I believe, is suing Hunter Biden for unpaid legal fees. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that, but the sense I got from Abby was that Hunter was very behind on his legal bills and that his firm was pressuring Abby to drop the representation because he wasn't getting paid promptly and adequately, and so it sounded like a pretty difficult situation.
Are you aware of anybody else in the White House donating money for Hunter Biden's legal defense?
I'm not aware of who the donors were. Again, I had left the White House when I made this donation.
Would you have ever advised the president to allow Hunter Biden in substantive meetings with, for instance, cabinet officials in the White House?
The question never came up, and so I never offered the president advice on it.
If President Biden walked up, approached you and said Hunter Biden is going to show up in this meeting, would you have advised that?
I can't speculate on what I would have said. Again, it never came up, and so I never offered advice on it.
Did you view Hunter as a political liability to the president?
I didn't think Hunter's problems were that relevant to the president politically. I know they mattered to the president personally, but I never thought they were that relevant to the president politically. I thought voters were going to decide whether or not Joe Biden would be the right president for the next 4 years based on what he would do for them, not what members of his family had done.
Were you involved in any conversations surrounding Hunter's trial?
Not that I recall, no.
You don't recall whether or not President Biden wanted to testify at Hunter's trial?
I don't recall that, no.
Do you recall if the First Lady wanted to testify at Hunter's trial?
I don't know.
Do you feel like the president enabled Hunter?
I'm not sure what the word enabled means. I think that the president, loved his son, but this son was an adult male and, fully grown adult and did what he wanted to do. I don't think the president was concerned about his health and concerned about his grandchildren, but I don't think the president was involved in Hunter's businesses or anything like that, and so, his, children don't always listen to their parents.
Did you ever feel like Hunter Biden was was manipulating the president in any way?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
What is your relationship with James Biden like? The president's brother.
Yes, I've met the president's brother on a number of occasions, but I really don't have any active relationship with Jimmy at all.
Any other members of the Biden family have you interacted with?
Yes, Valerie Biden Owens, the president's sister, ran his prior campaigns, and so I spent a good deal of time with her in the 2020 campaign when she was the chair of the campaign, or whatever her title was exactly, and and interacted with her previously when I worked for him in his Senate staff.
Did Ms. Owens, the president's sister, ever raise to you concerns about the president's age or his health and how that might be perceived in a campaign?
No, she did not.
want to talk about, I just want to straighten out, I think, a term that, or a term that we've been kind of banding about today. And I want to drill down on the term age. And you have pointed to age as a serious concern in the Biden campaign, how age was perceived, and that was something that you were pushing back against, and that was, I believe, one of the maybe the motivating factor for doing the debate. Is that correct?
Yes, I agree with that.
Isn't age isn't that a euphemism for some of the things that come along with age, like a physical decline, a mental decline, cognitive decline? Can you help me understand what you mean by the concerns surrounding the president's age?
Well, you'd have to ask the voters who had those concerns specifically what they had in mind. It was showing up in polls. I think that there's definitely a number of people in America today who think that political leaders in general are too old, and have directed that at members of the House and Senate as well. I just think there's a general view that there are voters who want younger elected officials, and President Biden was one of the targets of that, as was Speaker Pelosi, Senator Schumer, and others, Senator McConnell and others.
I'm going to introduce as Exhibit 5 an article from USA Today dated June 30th, 2024, entitled "More than 70% of voters say Biden doesn't have mental cognitive health to serve," new poll says.
Yes.
If you'd like to take a minute to read this article, I'm happy to go off the record.
Just a second. Okay.
So, you said I would have to ask the voters about the concerns about age, but it seems that that work was actually done for me. And that when the voters would talk about age, they were talking specifically about mental and cognitive health. So is it fair to say that that's what you were pushing back on?
Again, this poll is from late June that you've cited, and so it's the age narrative started well before that, and it's one particular poll, one particular group of voters, but I think that there's just a general view that we needed younger leadership in the country, and again, that was directed at Speaker Pelosi as well, and Senator Schumer too.
I mean, Donald Trump is not significantly younger than President Biden, but only one of them was facing a large pushback from their own party about being too old or too cognitively declined to compete in the race. Why is that?
First of all, this reports that almost half the voters thought that President Trump did not have the mental or cognitive ability to take on the role of commander-in-chief, so when half the country feels that way, that is a large pushback.
Sure, but half the country can hardly agree when the sky is blue, but you being a political professional in this field knows that 70% is a significant difference from 50%. Is it not, Mr. Klain?
It is. And obviously, President Biden had worse political problems on this point than President Trump had. But I heard Governor Christie, I was at an event with Governor Christie, who said that the first party that nominates someone other than Donald Trump or Joe Biden to be president will win the 2024 elections. And of course, that was wrong. The party that nominated Donald Trump won the 2024 elections. So this age criticism, the idea that both of them were too old, was out there, was being discussed by elected officials and prominent officials. And in the end, I thought that Biden would win.
But why do you think that one of these candidates was facing a significantly higher critique of their cognitive health?
I think his presentation skills were not as good as President Trump's, And I think people read too much in that and assumed that meant some kind of cognitive problem.
But his presentation skills were on display in the 2020 election, were they not?
Yes, they were.
Why had they declined since then?
Well, I'm not sure why they had declined. I certainly have said earlier that I thought his...
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please finish the answer.
I said earlier in this interview that I thought his political and presentation skills had declined since the 2020 election, but I found his cognitive skills still quite acute.
Okay, President Trump sat for a cognitive test. President Biden never did. Why do you think that is?
You'll have to ask President Trump why he sat for a cognitive test. I think the president's doctor never thought he needed a cognitive test. It was his doctor's decision to make.
Did you ever?
I also believe that I don't think President Trump got much political benefit from the cognitive test. It became kind of a running joke, man, woman, person, TV. And I'm not sure that he gained much benefit in that. And you still see that 49% of voters thought that he lacked the mental or cognitive ability to take on the role of commander-in-chief. So I don't think the cognitive test put an answer to it.
Do you think it would have not served President Biden well to sit for a cognitive test?
I don't know on what basis I would form that opinion. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a neurologist, I'm not a cognitive specialist. As I said, in my experience, President Biden was always mentally sharp. I thought his political skills and his communication skills had atrophied.